Hey there, listeners. I had a wonderful interview with a lady by the name of Irina Poddubnaia, and she is a SaaS founder and a business consultant who specializes in operations and processes optimization. And she's run a successful businesses or been part of businesses that have been successful, but has launched her own software organization called TrackMage. And so it allows e-commerce stores to have 5 to 10% extra sales by simplifying the customer experience. And we had a wonderful conversation in relation to leadership is changing. And we talked about the facilitated leader. And then the other area we talked about was sharing the voice and about how our voice can be heard, but also about how allowing others to share their voice. And it's really important for them to be heard. The other thing was about a remote culture. Hence, the title of the episode is Creating a Remote Culture. And of course, as we've been working from home and around in different areas and working remotely, that's actually now, how do you actually set up that kind of culture to ensure that you and your organization is going to succeed? And hence, that's why it was really important as a title for that episode. Anyhow, listeners, why don't we listen to the interview?
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Dennis Giannoutsas.
Hey there, listeners, and welcome to another wonderful episode with the Leadership is Changing podcast. I'm here with a wonderful guest. Her name is Irina Poddubnaia, and Irina is a wonderful lady who is somewhere else in the world, which she's going to share with us very soon. Big welcome to you.
Thank you very much. So, Dennis, I understand that we are very, very much apart. So you're in New Zealand and I'm in Bulgaria. So literally just like in Europe, and we have quite the time zone difference. So almost like 12 hours or even more. So yeah, and I'm joining you today with the intention to talk about leadership because that's a very interesting topic and I'm very passionate about it.
Excellent. Irina, tell us a little bit more about your background. Now that you've shared with us that you're in Bulgaria, that's all cool, but share a little bit about your background.
Right. So I originally started as a entrepreneur who started her business with going abroad. So I went to China for 2.5 years, and there we had a fulfillment center, and we've been running it for quite a long time. And later, when that business ended, I would say it just went out. We went out of the business. We started another one in software as a service space. It still is for e-commerce entrepreneurs, but we're solving the problems for those people who are like us back in China when we had to deal with all the fulfillment challenges and notifying customers about their packages and all that stuff. Right now, I would say that my position is properly described as a CEO of this company, TrackMage.com. I have quite an extensive background in processes optimization and everything that is related to leadership and team management. So that's my background right now.
Awesome. So it's more of an e-commerce kind of company, or you work with e-commerce companies as well and helping them. And it's called TrackMage.com as the organization. Now, tell me something here. How did you get into leadership?
Well, originally, when I started as an entrepreneur, I accidentally got into leadership because you cannot do everything alone. And I had to figure stuff out and communicate with multiple business owners and suppliers and vendors and cargo companies. So that's when I realized that I'm really good with people and structuring people into functional teams. And later, when we went out of the business, I was left with the ability to work online even before the COVID struck. Because I worked online for 7 years before COVID. And it was really a transformative experience because you have to think very differently. And you have to think with remote teams, you have to think remote first. So when I got into, I was educated in IT leadership, especially Scrum Mastering. So I'm a certified Scrum Master and Agile coach. So I help teams become productive and specifically in IT space. But that also works for e-commerce and marketing teams, like everywhere where you deal with uncertainty, Agile is applicable. Well, and that's how I started. And that's how I got into leadership as a servant leader, not just something like as an executive. And then later, when I started TrackMage as a company and I had to step into the executive role, that's where I had to find this tricky balance between servant leadership and and real executive leadership where you have to really give some direction, vision, and make sure that everyone stays on track.
Yeah. Good, good. How long were you in China for? 2.5 years, I think you said, right?
Yes, 2.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, which part of China were you in?
Actually, it was Guangzhou, south part of China. We had access to a lot of suppliers there, but then we realized that suppliers were not the pinnacle of a business. Actually, the customers were. That's when realization dawned on us.
Yeah, cool. So customers are pinnacle for a business, which is really important for sure. Yeah. And I think, from an agile Scrum Master, but also I think you're very good at pulling teams together and helping them with systems and processes to make sure they get the things done. Would that be an accurate summary of what you're good at as well?
Yes, that would be a good summary because I get stuff done, not essentially by my own hands, but when I structure a team and we have an objective, we definitely get it done.
Excellent. And the company you've got today, how big is that company in the sense of people and the team and that?
We're quite a small team. I would say we're still under 30 people overall. So we have a marketing side and we have development side and some of operations. But again, most of the people are part-time or they are freelancers because I believe in remote first. And that's how I started. I believe that these people are even more reliable than employees that are offline. And I would say that this approach has never failed me so far. So that's how we are currently growing. So we are a remote first company.
Yeah, got it. I get it. So it's more of an international team rather than a team in the local area.
Yes, we have people from Serbia, from Ukraine, even right now, like in the current circumstances, we just had to relocate some of the people because it wasn't possible to continue operating like that. But we helped them get out, at least some QA engineers that we had. Then we have people from Turkey, from Canada, from like all over the place, really.
Cool. So the people in Ukraine, yeah, amazing what they're going through at the moment. So you've been able to relocate that staff or those individuals to other areas so they can continue to work. So in a safe space, which is important.
Yes. Yeah. That was quite a challenge to really face because again, it was devastating and surprising for everyone. When it was just like, well, in February, something happened and then just we had to deal with it. And it was very, again, on some of the daily stand-ups, when the QA engineer, she came and said like, oh, I'm safe in Poland now. And we just like almost cried like the whole team because of this. Yeah. That's amazing. And good on you for doing, getting that person out as well, others out as well, which is important. Irina, I've got a question here for you, and that is, now this person could be alive or from history. Who is your favorite leader and why? My favorite leader is Elon Musk, because I believe that the person needs to be able to do something meaningful in their life. He is probably doing something that is very significant on the planetary scale. So we're getting to Mars probably sometime soon, right? And then he's always pushing the boundaries of technology. And we have the electrical cars, the Boring Company, and all these ambitious and very uncanny projects. He even announced and released essentially a robot that is going to do household chores. Well, if there is a person who is making this planet transition to the 21st century or 22nd century, that's probably Elon Musk. And I admire what he's doing. Plus, he is also a fun person who doesn't talk back when it comes to Twitter. And like the meme lord of a CEO, that's probably the perfect combination.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, if you were on a park bench sitting down with Elon Musk and you wanted to ask him a question, you two are having a coffee there on this park bench, what would be one question you might want to ask him?
That's an interesting question. And I really don't know what I would ask. So maybe I would ask him how he's making his decisions, because again, that's probably already covered in detail in some of those YouTube videos about first principles and whatnot. But maybe he can share just the real process behind the decision making. That's the question that I would probably ask.
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. Yeah. So what's the process he has behind his decision making? And yeah.
How does he know what to invest into? How does he know what is a good project to really go forward with? So if he has some kind of framework or some kind of flipping a coin method, that definitely is going to be an interesting thing to know about.
Be interesting. Yeah. I mean, I wonder if it is flipping a coin. I'm buying Twitter. No, I'm not buying Twitter. Oh, okay, I better buy Twitter. Really interesting. But yeah, it'd be great to be around a guy like that, just to have a coffee and understand more about their thinking process and that, yeah, which is really good. Yeah, very good. Now, tell me something here. I'm really quite interested to know the answer to this question. And that is, the show here is called Leadership is Changing. When I say that title or that statement, what does it mean to you?
Well, to me personally, it means that leadership is changing in terms of how and what the expectations are. So previously, the leadership was mostly about this tribal, beat the competition, making sure that we're making progress and growth. That's what leadership was all about. It's still there. So the command and control style leadership is still there. And there are quite a few companies that operate with that model. But I think that the future belongs to the facilitative leader or the servant leadership. Just because we're dealing with more and more complexity and more information around us. And right now, even some of those traditional jobs, they are dying. And we're dealing with creative industries and emerging of new professions that were not possible before, like a streamer or, online artist or an AI engineer. So all of those professions, they deal with knowledge work. And in knowledge work, command and control doesn't really do anything. Even if you put so many creative people in a room and say to them, okay, the deadline is tomorrow, give me the masterpiece. Are you going to get the result? Well, probably, maybe, if for some reason those people decide to still work and maybe we will create something. But is it going to be a masterpiece? That's questionable. So with those type of employees or with those type of industries, servant leadership yields better results, where you just provide people everything that is needed for them to really do their best job, and you're serving them, essentially not them serving you to achieve certain goals. So that's how that is flipping. And even in marketing, when we're talking about making new creative campaigns and everything, it's much better if marketers make their own decisions based on the market feedback. And for that to happen, they need to be out there. And the actual command and control might hold them back because they will be listening to one specific person in a company who's giving them orders, but does that person really base them on market feedback or analytics or some real data that can help them make better decisions? So this is what I think is the essence of the change that we're going to see in leadership. So transition from traditional command and control to, as I say, to facilitative leadership, servant leadership, where we just hire best people, we give them the grounds to work on, and then just marvel in what they achieve when they have necessary tools.
Yeah, I really like what you say there about the facilitated leader or the servant leadership. I think that is really important. And you can see the transition, you can see the shift happening in a lot of organizations where it's actually happening. What do you think leaders need to do today to help them with the transition from the command and control, as you called it before, to the facilitated or the servant leadership? What do they need to do to help with that transition?
I believe the best way to transition to facilitative leadership, or at least changing the style of leadership, would be through education or changing the mindset. Because it all starts between the ears, essentially, where the person really starts to understand the new paradigm. So that it's not them giving orders to their employees, it's them listening to the employees and making sure that they have everything that they need, and then resolving some of the organizational obstacles or even external obstacles for the team to succeed. So it's not about being the most knowledgeable person in the room anymore. It's about really helping our people shine and express their talents and doing their best work.
Yeah, great. Help others shine and let them do what they need to do to really help their talent move forward. And I like it. I think you're talking more about the mindset, what's going on between the two ears and the paradigms that we might have. So the way that we think about things, we need to be thinking about things differently nowadays. We might need to adjust our thinking around some of these different things as well. And so I think that's great what you shared about how leaders can transition between those other areas.
The thing is, I shared what they need to do, but then how? I think what can be really helpful is going through some kind of coaching training, because the coaching mindset is already ingrained in all the competencies of a coach. So if the leader has some spare time and they are willing to educate themselves, it's probably best to select something like an International Coaching Federation training or something like that for executives, and go through that and see how the mindset and really the approach to conversations change after you go through some kind of training like that.
Yeah, there you go, listeners. Engage Dennis as your executive coach to help you transition. But you're right, though. I think what the big thing here is that we can't always do it by ourselves. In other words, we need a team around us to help us go out and build our businesses. But you as an individual, for you to grow, for you to transition, for you to think through things differently, you definitely need to have a coach on board to actually help you with your thinking and really stretch you in that space as well. So that's a good little plug. Thank you for what we need to do in that area too, which is really good. Now, the thing here is you and I, and you'll understand this from a technology perspective, but also from a marketing perspective and so forth. Life is getting faster. Change is constant. Life, technology, business, data, from a social perspective, everything is getting faster. So what do you reckon makes a leader successful today in this fast-paced, ever-changing world?
I think that's already ingrained in this question. So if a world is changing, leadership should be changing as well. It's all about adaptation and being adaptable, being flexible with the points of view and trying different approaches. What I think that is very effective right now is failing forward. Whenever you're getting into a new industry or trying a new approach, you just go forward with it, see what happens, and then reflect on it. That's essentially an iteration that you go through. Iterative processes, they are best for adaptation because you get real-time feedback from the market or real-time feedback from your employees or whatever you're changing, like different processes, different approaches, different mindsets, even your personal habits. Whenever you introduce a new habit, it's a change that gradually evolves through a repetition. But again, if a habit is not working, you will see that almost immediately if you stop and reflect at that point. So basically, everything needs to be changing and adapting every time. Like closing that feedback loop is very important to stay up to date with all the global and local changes that are happening all the time.
So, Irina, is that why they talk about people needing to fail forward, but fail fast? So then you can reflect iterations and then move forward. Is that why they say that?
Probably. I would need to ask them why they say that. But the thing is, if your iterations are quite rapid, you will learn more. So you just like, instead of building something like this is like the traditional distinction between waterfall and agile. So with agile, we just create something like very small portion of the product. We just get it out of there and then we get feedback. When we get another version, we get feedback. But with waterfall, like we have is like 300 pages software requirement specification. We go through it and we build it in half a year. When we release it to the market doesn't want it. Then we go back to the drawing board and create another 300 pages specification. Yep. So if you just condense this time to 1 week or 2 weeks, or however small time is needed to deliver the product, that's the best way forward because you will learn way more if you just go out there, get feedback, and go back to make some changes.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. So there you go, listeners. It's about failing forward. It's about, I think the other piece too here that's really important that what you've said, Irina, was reflect on it. I think that reflection piece is huge because that's where we learn. That's where we can grow and we can take whether mistakes or whether there's something we could do differently. That's where we can learn a lot from doing it. And so I think it's really good that what you're saying there. So listeners, failing forward and reflecting on it, doing iterations is really important.
Yeah. I also might add that when you are reflecting, don't only listen to your own feedback or your own opinion. So as a facilitative leader, you might gain more if you just give a voice back to the team. And this is essentially one of those skills that is called sharing the voice. If you are the only person who is talking on the meeting, something is wrong. You literally need to make sure that all the team members are voicing their opinions and not after you saying your opinion. CEO's words weigh a ton. That's really a very interesting concept that I had to understand. So whenever I voice my opinion, everyone is bound to agree just because they respect my authority and all that. But that's why I'm not saying anything before everyone else says everything they want it. So that's how you can flip the script a little bit in this conversation.
Oh, that's great. Sharing the voice. I think it's awesome, right? So you're not just a talking head there and then you're having to have all the answers for everybody, but you're actually asking others to share their voice. And when they share their voice, that's really important. And that's why I started this podcast was, as I told you before, about the voice journey, right? So my voice being heard, but it's about your voice being heard, but it's helping the listeners grow their leadership skills and capabilities through this podcast to enable them to have their voice heard as well at the table, which is important. So it's about sharing the voice, and there we go. Very nice. Excellent. You and I have been talking about leadership, but we've also been talking about leaders. If we were to change lenses or change gear now, the employee from their perspective, how has employees' expectations of leaders changed?
I think that with COVID and with remote first culture that is currently emerging, the employees currently they expect that the company is going to provide them the means to do work, but not get them distracted from their daily lives. So I believe that right now it's more about convenience and more about the ability to work from anywhere. So the expectation is that there is more freedom in the workplace. And also another trend that I'm noticing is that people are more mindful of their mental health and health in general. So they care more about their well-being. And it's no longer just about work. You should also care about the employees. That's the expectation. So it's global, and it really is evolving with the employees treating the employer as somebody who is caring about them, somebody who is providing them with the means to do something meaningful and impactful. And that's where we come back to the mission of a company and the vision. If a company has a strong vision or a strong mission, a lot of employees are going to choose the company regardless of what is happening in the workplace. They just want to contribute to that grand idea and move forward with that company. So basically, these are the three things that I think the employees are currently expecting. So convenience and the freedom to work from anywhere, then really caring. So the employer needs to care about them personally, and then doing something meaningful and impactful on the global scale.
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, I like those three things that you're talking about. The remote cultures, it's a big thing. It's happening, of course. COVID really emphasized or accelerated it big time. A lot of organizations were like, oh, we can't have people working from home. They have to be in the office. Then that just got thrown out the window because of COVID, right? COVID sort of said, no, you can work from home. Now organizations are finding it hard to bring people back into the office. Have you noticed that? Are you seeing that from your colleagues, other CEOs, other people that you know? Are they experiencing it to be quite hard to bring back people into the office?
Yes, because people actually understood that for them to do the work, the commute isn't necessary. And the office walls, they are not very much different from their walls at home, and their internet connection is probably better at home. So the idea would be that, all the freelancers and remote first consultants, they always knew everything that the world is currently discovering. As I said, I worked 7 years before, I worked remote 7 years before COVID struck. And then everyone was saying, oh my God, we're going to work from home. I'm saying, what changed? I really don't see any changes from myself personally.
No. Yeah. And for me as well, as I work from, with my global role or, other roles that I have, Hewlett Packard and things like that. Well, a lot of it was from home, or a lot of it was traveling. So the traveling couldn't happen. But you're right. Yeah, it's good. Very good. Now, I'm going to ask you to get your crystal ball out here and start to think about the future. Where do you see leadership being in 5 years?
Well, I think 5 years, in 5 years, probably we will see even more prominent servant leadership trend where people are going to expect the leaders to cater to them versus them catering to some boss or somebody who is giving them orders. So in 5 years, I think nothing dramatic is going to happen. But maybe in 20 years, we might see some collective leadership where the leadership is going to be something that is going to collectively be decided by the groups or self-organizing clusters. So that's what I think is going to the future might be even leaderless, with leaders playing the role of the visionaries or some innovators or inspirational or motivational factors, but not actually doing the decision-making. The decision-making might be done collectively based on the data and intelligence that is gathered from the market and from all other places that are involved in the process. So I would think that leadership is going to be mainly just on the human side of the equation. So people still need to believe in some person who is going to take care of them or who's going to inspire them to reach new goals, but the actual decision making might transition to the teams even more. So that's like every employee is going to be part of the collective decision making and communicating with customers and getting everything done without any guidance from like the higher ups.
Whoa, Irina, I really love what you just shared there. That's really, really cool stuff. So it's not just about servant leadership in the next 5 years, but 20 years or so, collective leadership. We might be leaderless, where the leaders are actually just setting the vision, things like that, but then it's up to others to make the decisions. I love it. I think it's really cool. It'd be wonderful to see, or if you and I can revisit again in 20 years' time just to see where it's at. And I don't know if this podcast will be still going by then, but hey, who knows? That'd be pretty cool. Irina, hey, I just want to say to you, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of the Leadership is Changing podcast. If our listeners are wanting to get hold of you, where should they go?
I think they should probably visit our website. It's called TrackMage.com. So if anyone from the audience, they are in e-commerce, this is a very neat tool to have in the tool stack that helps with post-purchase experience and other customer support related issues. And I can be found on LinkedIn. Irina Poddubnaia. You can see that in the show notes, how to properly spell my surname, because I know it's unpronounceable. I know it's too long. But anyways.
Poddubnaia. It's
yes.
easy to say. Yeah.
Yes, it is. The tongue twister of our.
It's all good. So we'll put those in the show notes so the listeners can refer to that and be able to go to those different links as well. So once again, Irina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for having me here, and have a great day.
Thank you. There you go, listeners. Thanks for joining us on today's episode. Until next time, bye for now.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Dennis Giannoutsas. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.